go ahead, the rest of the veggies are chopped, ready to go into the pan. I'm going to put the garlic in first. And if you notice, I try to, if I can, make one trip, carry all the veggies over at one time. If you're concerned that you won't be able to chop while this is sauteing, while the zucchini is in the oven softening up, chop everything ahead of time. You don't have to do it this way until you become a really organized cook. Once you become an organized cook, you can definitely handle it this way. But in the beginning, chop everything first, get everything ready. Otherwise, you're going to end up burning things and getting frustrated. And I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to get successful in the kitchen. Okay, the garlic doesn't take long at all. If you leave it in, it will burn. So we're going to go ahead and drop the tomato and the insides of the zucchini in here. Okay. And then as soon as I get this going, I'm going to season it. Alright. A little bit of garlic powder. Probably about a teaspoon, something like that, if I were measuring it. This is an Italian seasoned blend. Pretty much everybody has one. That's probably a teaspoon. I left my salt and pepper back over here, so I'm going to give a twist of the black pepper. Pepper's pretty aggressive, so go easy on this. I'm taking a pinch, but this is probably about a teaspoon salt if we were going to measure it. I'm going to start with that. I can always add more, but I will always, like I said earlier, I will always season as I go along. You don't want to wait till the end. The salt has to get in there, and the seasonings, it has a time to absorb. You also wouldn't want to taste this right away. You want to let that kind of sit in there and just have time to soak in and combine. Just stepped on him. He loves to be in here while I cook. He likes vegetables. This is Bubba. Hi, Bubba. You want a piece of zucchini? There you go. All right. There you go. All right. Even our dogs love vegetables around here. Okay. We're going to check on these little zucchini boats here. And, you know, I think they're about right. And what you can do is take a fork. I can just tell by looking at them because they're going to cook longer. But, you know, take a fork, and if it's al dente, if it kind of goes in nicely, you're all right. So, excuse me, pull that out. And we're just going to set this here until the stuffing is ready to go. Try to clean my stove a little as I can along the way so that I don't end up with a big, huge mess at the end. Alright. Because the zucchini and the tomato have so much fluid in them naturally, it's not likely that I'm going to need more oil or water at this point. Definitely not more oil because we are doing calorie-controlled cooking. Olive oil is good for you, but still filled with calories. I'm going to go ahead and just put all my seasonings over here to the side. And if I need to adjust seasonings, I've got them all right here. My olive oil is always right there. But I'm going to keep the water right here by the saute pan so that I can add in. I'm going to add the beef in once these get to a tender, soft stage. Now, again, the ground beef. I chose to use ground beef today simply because that's what I had on hand. But I would use turkey in here, I would use chicken in here, but because this dish is naturally low in saturated fat, you can use the 95%, 95.5, you know, because it's lean, about 5.6 grams of saturated fat for 4 ounces. And this is not even 4 ounces per person. And again, when you're making it, you could add up to a pound, keeping in that 4 ounce per person for 4 people ratio. But this works for us. We like it just like this. The other thing that I'm going to add in here now that this is, if you watch, there's a lot of liquid still. See the liquid? So it's definitely not, we want that liquid reduced down. But what I'm going to add in here is tomato paste. Now, I keep my tomato paste in the freezer, not when it's in the can, of course, but as soon as I open the can, you rarely use an entire can of tomato paste. So I then will take it, put it in a Ziploc bag, and I keep it in my freezer right there, along with a few other, like this are some adobo, some chilies that I keep in there as well. But you see, I kind of squish it into a little round package here, and I just keep it in the in a little, you know, plastic bag. So pull my cutting board back out over here, and obviously you can't measure it, but how I do that is about this much of the disc is about a tablespoon. So that's about a tablespoon. And in this, I'm going to start out with 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Just going to let that cook into the, you certainly could open a fresh can, but like with me, you know, you just rarely are using more than 3 tablespoons of tomato paste unless you're just making a vat of spaghetti sauce. So just going to let that cook and let that tomato paste. And then as soon as I get that tomato paste combined in, I'm going to give it a taste. So go ahead and cut for a little while. Look, the liquid is starting to reduce out pretty most of the way. You see a little bit. Of course, you don't want it completely dry. I'm going to go ahead and add the ground beef that I had already browned. Now, when I browned this ground beef, I did salt, I did pepper, I did garlic powder. So I already seasoned it. And when I put this in, if I think that it needs a little more liquid, I might add some tomato paste in, a little water. But what I'm going to do here is just taste it. See how it is. A little of the beef too. I want to see how much flavors are coming together. I'm going to back off my heat. You see how it's doing right now? See how the pan's starting to dry out? That my moisture is going way more rapidly than I would like. So I'm going to reduce my heat. Back it off a little bit. It's pretty good. I'm going to add about probably a ½ teaspoon of Italian seasoning, because I want more in there. I'm going to add a little more garlic powder. And again, remember, this is to your taste. So I probably started out with a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, and a teaspoon of salt, and just a sprinkle of pepper. But I'm going to do a little more pepper. I was like 4 or 5 turns there, and all pepper mills are different. So, and then this is my kosher salt, and that's probably a ½ teaspoon, teaspoon and a pinch. And it's getting a little drier than I want, so I'm just going to add just a tad bit of water in there. Now you could use chicken stock, but in this, it's really pretty flavorful. So I don't think you're going to need to do that. A little bit more. It's just a little bit drier than I want it to be. Okay. Because I got a few more minutes to adjust the seasoning here. Alright, same thing again. I'm going to check that last adjustment, see how it did. good. I like it. Okay. You could add more if you are a tomato-y person. You could have added more tomato paste in here, but I think that the 2 tablespoons are just right. So we're ready to stuff this. Let's take this over here to our zucchini. All right. There's a couple of tools you can use to stuff this with, but a spoon works just fine. And I always start out with just kind of filling them even. And then if I have extra, I mound it. Okay, we've just filled these up. You see that it's, you know, even though that was just a half a pound of ground beef, it doesn't look like we've skimped on that at all. And tomorrow in class when you taste this, you'll see that. Have some Parmesan cheese that I've grated. I know I tell you guys to stay away from cheese all the time, but it adds just, the nice thing about Parmesan cheese is that it adds a punch of flavor. So you don't need a ton of it. So when you do use cheese and things, and you know, I don't normally put cheese and beef together because they're both high in saturated fat. But in this case, our beef is only at 5.6 per person at tops, because we're probably not even getting 4 ounces per person here. So I'm pretty comfortable putting Parmesan cheese on this dish because I want it to be flavorful. Again, you know, it doesn't matter if it's healthy if no one will eat it. And I know I've said that to you guys a few times, but you know, you just always have to remember that. So you see I'm just putting a sprinkling, not putting a ton. And if I were having company over, maybe I would go a little heavier with this. But this is just to add a little bit of a sharp flavor. And you see that these are mounded up kind of nicely. And if you look, the edges, I don't really have it too far out on the edge. It's kind of just in the center. It's not hard to be neat with this dish. Now, earlier when we cooked these, there was water in this pan, and if you'll look, there still is, and I want to keep it that way. It's not a ton, but if there's no water in this pan, these aren't going to cook. They're just going to burn. So definitely want to keep some water in there, and it might be something that you want to check while you're cooking it. This is about a 30-minute cook time on these. Really, it's until you like the tenderness of the zucchini. If your family likes crunchy veggies, hey, 10 minutes to get everything hot. But if your family likes it a little softer, gives the vegetables a chance to kind of combine with the meat, and then about 30 minutes. At 350, standard temperature is what you're going for here. Lowest rack. All right, so we're going to set the timer for 30 minutes and see how these come out. Okay, zucchini's just come out of the oven. It took 30 minutes. Looks great. Nice and tender. Brown. Looks really good. As you can see, if you look on this side of the pan, I let the water run out just a little bit more than I should have. And in fact, to be honest with you, these are a little more cooked than I had intended. But they'll be great. If I were serving them tonight, they'd be perfect. Tomorrow for you guys, I'm probably going to wish I had gone about 5 minutes less. But actually, I think I went about 5 minutes over my 30-minute time. But on our way out, I want to show you a couple things also working on tomorrow. Here's the parsley that I told you guys how to wash. You just put it in a bowl, and then you just kind of swish it around, and you gently lift it out, and the dirt and the residue will sink to the bottom. And if the parsley's pretty dirty, you can do that a couple of times. This is a bean salad that I'm in the middle of making for you guys. I'll tell you all about that tomorrow. And then right here in this bowl are all the veggies that I'm using on the different recipes that we're doing. Got some butternut squash, spaghetti squash, beets, all sorts of great things. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.